Hey there, thanks for watching. In this video, I'm going to share my budget process as well as the real numbers from my May budget recap. So if that sounds interesting to you, then just stick around. Before we get started, I ask you to please give this video a like by clicking that thumbs up button. It's a huge help to me and my channel, and I really appreciate it. And it's free, it doesn't cost you any money. So when it comes to my budgeting and my budgeting process and showing all my real numbers on this channel, I had kind of gotten away from showing those. This channel became less about me and all of my individual numbers and more about aiming for financial independence, strategies from people who have already achieved financial independence, and showing how they can work in an everyday life of someone who is working toward financial independence. So I transitioned away from the tactical day-to-day individual numbers and more to the high-level strategy and how I implement that in my life, because again, I say the only thing I am an expert in is my own story, and I aim to learn from people who have achieved financial independence and mirror their habits and actions in my own life in order to bring myself to financial independence faster. That said, the reason I'm sharing my budget process and my real numbers budget recap for May is because I know that I found it helpful to watch other people's budgeting process and their recaps, and it's also been requested by like 2 whole people, so I just want to be helpful here, and if sharing my numbers is going to be helpful, then I definitely want to do that. So in just a second, I will share with you my Google Sheets budget. Before we start, I have to give credit to Erika Kulberg because I used her base template as a way to start building my own budget sheet. I've gone through several different versions in the past few years, and hers is definitely the template that's been of the most service, and I really appreciate this template the most. So I will leave all of her information down below. So this is the first tab, and you see it says enter here, and I'll just walk you through the different tabs. I use the first 4 tabs down here to kind of comprise my monthly budget. I do enter in my spending every single day for everything that is discretionary or everything that's variable. I have my fixed cost already put in, and I'll show you where I put them. So these are my expenses and spendings for May. Again, I enter everything, all my expenses in daily, and I enter that on the enter here tab. And I just have them sorted by category. For ease, I can also sort them by date for number. There you go. And then they come up by day. So that's how they start off, and I make sure to put in a category for everything. And then when it comes to sorting out the categories and how much I've spent in each category, I just organize them alphabetically. All right, so hopping over to the monthly tab. And just a second here. Let me adjust it so you can see. There you go. Okay. So this has my spending, and it automatically just tallies up because of the formulas that are built in there from the Enter Here tab. You can see my spending by category, and I'll go through this. So this is just to give you an overview. I'll go through this in more detail. So that's my spending by category. And then if I go to the next tab, you can see, there you go, the categories I have and the budget I have for each. So again, because there are so many different formulas in this sheet, it took me a while to figure out where each one is coming from and feeding to. But once I got it sorted, it saves so much trouble and work in reconciling at the end of the month. So I highly recommend this format. So it takes, again, there's a bit of a learning curve, but it's worth it in the end. So that is really those are the 3 main tabs that I use, and then in this tracker over here, nope, these are the 3 main tabs. So I really use these 3, and everything else is just for kind of my own information or like scratch categories that I have. So I have this tracker I don't really use. There's a business income sheet that I do use. I'll just let you see what they are. Business expenses. This is my wish list. I love this tab. This I've been using more. Rather than buying some things on impulse, I will put them in my wish list tab. My target savings rate, and then calculations, any calculations that I do kind of on the fly where I want to just pop them into Excel and double check my numbers. So let me roll you all the way back to my enter here, because this is where the good stuff is. So these 3 categories, these 3 tabs, the enter here, the monthly, the categories tabs are all important. So once I've entered everything for the month and the month is closed out, then I take a look at my categories. First, I make sure that everything has a everything is all filled in for these main 6 columns. So I have the date, the month, the description of what I bought, the cost, the payment method, and then the category that it falls into. And these categories fall from the categories tab over here is where they all come from. So that took me a while to figure out, but again, it just automatically tabulates. So it saves me a lot of time in the recap at the end of the month. So now that I have everything assigned a category and I've sorted these categories, I can see where my spending has landed. So if I slide over to the monthly category, it will show you where I ended up. So bear with me there. Okay, there we go. So I'll run through the categories and I'll tell you kind of where I landed. For business, I have $319, and just ignore this grand total. Let me hide that grand total so it doesn't get confusing. There we go. For business, in this month, I had $319, and that was buying a new mic. For clothing, I had $105. Close that. For food out, I had $359. For gifts, I had $95, and that was where I actually got my mother TSA pre-check, so she's approved now. We're going to be flying at the end of the month, and she plans to do some more traveling. I love my mom, so I wanted to get her that to just kind of speed through her process at the airport. I have it, and it's fantastic, and I wanted her to have it as well. For groceries, I had $490. For health, I had $90. And for household, I had $700. Now, that was due to some home repairs that we did around the house, and I was able to cover those. And yeah, so no spend days. Now, this is an interesting category that I really like, and the reason that has $11 is because I managed to not spend any discretionary or variable expenses for 11 days. So I'm really proud of that number. So it's about a third of the month I didn't spend. And the reason I do that, because does it matter if you don't spend any money on one day? No. But for me, it's more of a mental thing. And if I'm spending a lot in little places, it's much easier for me to keep spending. Whereas if I put it in my mind that I'm not going to spend and I want to rack up another no spend day, that's a huge thing. And it's really more of a mental exercise for me. For personal, I spent $78, and that was on a haircut and hair care supplies. For transportation, I spent $182, and that's gas and an oil change. And then for utilities, I spent $408, and that's, again, my lights, electricity, gas, and water. Okay, now sliding over to the categories section. So here is where I put in my budget, and I can see exactly how much. Okay, so I can see what I spent for each. I actually spent for business $315. You know what, let me not do that, because this is actually set up for the next month. So this is set up for June, and this is how I calculate my fixed costs and my variable costs. So I don't really look at this top portion when I plan out my month. I do have my salary and any additional income I have, and I have that blacked out for privacy. Okay, so for fixed costs, here is what I pay. So I have my housing, my phone, my insurance, that's my car insurance, my utilities, my giving, my health, and savings. So this is after-tax savings. I already have my pre-tax, my 401k, and any insurance payments coming out. So this is all net income that hits my bank account. So my fixed costs are $1,832 each month. So that's a significant, I feel like that's a significant amount. It's not as high as it could be. So that's roughly a little bit more than half of my take-home pay is dedicated to fixed costs. And that's not including groceries or food. So food, transportation, or food or transportation. So then what this column does is it takes, I'll show you the formula, it takes my income minus the fixed costs. So this is the amount that I'm left with once I have that minus the fixed costs. So I then take this amount and I realize this is what I have to kind of work with as I'm planning the month out. And I put in the variable costs. And again, recapping the month, I spent for business $319, for clothing that $105, food out was $360, the groceries was $490, household was $50, and I took the $650 from savings. So that was a bit of an expense, but I was able to cover it with my savings. And then I had those 11 no spend days, which was great. I had that $76 for the hair care. And then I added in this $50 for subscription fees. Now that's Amazon Prime, Netflix, Spotify, and Apple storage. I am planning to move both my Amazon Prime, my my Apple storage to my business accounts because those are fully deductible expenses. So that's upcoming. Then I had the $182 for transportation. That's the gas and oil change, which is going to go up in the next month because gas prices have been climbing very steadily. I've heard recently that we are at the lowest gas prices since 2014, we haven't seen gas prices like this since 2014. They've been very low for the past 7 years. So no more. And then I have gifts and anything I sent to my mother. And just a note with my mom, she is fantastic, and the house is in her name. We are building equity in the house, and eventually the plan is we're on track to pay off the house completely, so we will have the asset of a fully paid off house to sort of to the family. And I think the plan eventually for estate planning is to leave that in a living trust so that that will go to both me and my sister. So somebody left a comment saying that, oh, I'm going to live with my mom forever. And I'm like, well, no, we're building equity in the house as we speak. So this is my privilege to spend time with her. I'm not in any way subsidizing her lifestyle, nor is she subsidizing mine. We just happen to be in the fortunate position where we can both add and contribute to each other. She's actually waiting for me right now because we're supposed to go get some Greek food because it's Friday and we're treating ourselves for lunch. So that is the recap of how much I spent in my variable costs. And you can see I had $222 left in savings. So that went first to put back the additional $650 that I took for the household repairs. And then any additional savings is covered here. And this is just kind of a bare bones minimum savings for any immediate emergencies, putting me at a savings rate of 602, which is not ideal, but this is just kind of where I landed this month in May. So that's where I landed for my May budget recap, and that's kind of my process and how I figure out where I landed for the month based on where I wanted to set out for the month. So let me know if this has been helpful to you. I may consider sharing these a little bit more often if they are helpful. So let me know in the comments below what you thought. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you as always for watching, and I hope that you'll keep watching. Bye.